Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. Surah Al-Munafiqun, chapter 63. We will cover all verses of Surah Al-Munafiqun 1 to 11. The reality of hypocrisy and its signs and solution. It's a very important surah because it goes through some very salient aspects of hypocrisy. And these will help us to not only overcome if there are any tendencies within us, but also to recognize around the world. These are the references, and this is our contact in case there is any query or comment regarding this presentation or other presentations. Overview of today's presentation. This surah draws its name, i.e. Munafiqun, from the conduct of the Munafiqeen, that is hypocrites, during the era of Rasulullah and his companions. However, the trait of hypocrisy exists among many people in all eras, hence what is noted here is very much valid today. So we should keep in mind that though it is particularly addressed to Momineen of that era, and those people who behaved with this kind of a trait. So that is the context in which this discussion will take place. These hypocrites used to say to the Messenger of Allah that they affirm that he is the Rasool of Allah, and Allah also confirms that he is his messenger. However, the Quran notes that these hypocrites indeed are liars. This is because what they say from their lips, their hearts do not accept this fact. Despite speaking the truth, they become liars as their hearts deny what their tongues utter. Hence, the lack of harmony between tongue and heart defines hypocrisy, which is declared as a serious crime according to the Book of Allah. Then the Quran presents some signs of these hypocrites which throw light on their psyche. Towards the end, the Quran guides Momineen by asking them to set their priorities right, using the permanent values, for example, keeping their wealth and possessions available for the system of Deen. So essentially, there are two aspects which are covered in this surah. First, hypocrites, and then guidance for Momineen. And that guidance is essentially that do not follow that path and overcome these tendencies. And the Quran gives the recipe for that. This harmony between heart and words, 63:1. إِذَا جَاءَكَ الْمُنَافِقُونَ قَالُوا نَشْهَدُ إِنَّكَ لَرَسُولُ اللَّهِ وَاللَّهُ يَعْلَمُ إِنَّكَ لَرَسُولُهُ وَاللَّهُ يَشْهَدُ إِنَّ الْمُنَافِقِينَ لَكَاذِبُونَ. O Rasool, when these hypocrites come to you, they swear oaths that they acknowledge that you are undoubtedly the messenger of Allah. Allah is aware of this truth that you are the messenger of his, but he wishes this matter to be known that these people merely utter these words from their lips. In their hearts, they do not accept you as the messenger. Hence, they are liars. When someone's heart and tongue are not in harmony, then that person is a liar in his words, even if what he is declaring may be a fact. According to the Quran, qazab is that in which there is no mutual harmony between the heart and tongue. Its other name is munafiqat or hypocrisy. Now, there are some comments which I've added to expand this aspect, defining hypocrisy at fundamental level. This surah sets the scene by taking a page from the conduct of hypocrites or munafiqeen in the earlier era of the establishment of the system of Deen based exclusively on the Quranic value system. These people had never accepted Eimaan in their hearts, but outwardly used to state that they are Momineen just like others. And that is an important point, that they posed themselves as part of Momineen. At a nascent stage of any Jamaat formation, it is quite impossible to judge people as there are few opportunities to observe their deeds and behavior, since these people manage to hide these. Because when a formation of a Jamaat takes place and any group which comes together, it's very difficult to judge each other until people show their behavior, their conduct over a period of time. So that is why one should not judge people initially, but as the time passes, there should be certain criteria against which people should be judged. And that is important. Here Allah has pointed to an eternal principle of not making an opinion on the basis of what people say alone. And that is very important, that words should not be taken as what people say. And we should not just say that this is what their hearts also agree to what they are saying. Because words come cheap. We see in today's world that politicians can say anything and promise anything, but it is the deeds which matter. This criterion provided by the Quran will stay valid for all times. So what is stated over here in this verse is perfectly valid even in a non-Deen world. But over here, the context is about Momineen. And since we are the students of the Quran, this is very imperative for us to understand these things, the psyche behind this hypocrisy. And Momineen in every era need to remain fully aware of this. This aspect is covered in detail in the meanings of the Quran, volume 1. There is so much covered on Munafiqeen in the Quran that it is not possible to cover it in one presentation. Here we will go through this surah and a few other relevant verses from other chapters of the Quran. The issue of the conduct and behavior of hypocrites is introduced in Surah Al-Baqarah at the start of the Quran. Quran says, وَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَنْ يَقُولُ آمَنَّا بِاللَّهِ وَبِالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ وَمَا هُمْ بِمُؤْمِنِينَ. Of the people, there are some who say, we have Eimaan in Allah and the hereafter, but they are not Momineen. And this is important, that merely someone saying that I have Eimaan in Allah or declaring himself to be a Muslim does not mean that his heart also accepts it. Now continuing, the same is noted in this verse when Deen was in the process of being established. Seeing its initial success, some people joined without accepting Eimaan in order to draw the benefits of this system. However, since they had not accepted Eimaan, their psyche was not that of a Mu'min. And as the system started to acquire success, they felt jealous and uncomfortable and commenced their intrigues against the system. Over here, I will also include the definition of truth by A.N. Whitehead, which is quoted by Allama Pervez in his lecture as well. The truth is when there is a conformation of appearance to reality, that what is reality and its appearance both should match. One can question this statement, but there is some kind of a semblance of truth in that whatever is the reality behind something, unless it matches with the appearance of it, we should not accept it. This aspect is noted in this verse, فِي قُلُوبِهِمْ مَرَضٌ فَزَادَهُمُ اللَّهُ مَرَضًا وَلَهُمْ عَذَابٌ أَلِيمٌ بِمَا كَانُوا يَكْسِبُونَ. In their hearts is a disease, and Allah has increased disease. Consequence is the fire of hell for them due to this munafiqat. So munafiqat from the Quranic perspective is counted as disease. It's a psychological disorder. It is dissonance which people experience within themselves when they think that they can get away with whatever is in their heart and they can hide the truth about their own conduct, and they want to get immediate benefits of life. The root, which is of Munafiqun, is NFQ in relation to this term, means it is that tunnel in which both entrance and exit are open. That is, Nafaq is a tunnel. Hence, Munafiq, a hypocrite, is that person who before entering a system sees which is the exit from this system. It also means to keep wealth open for use, make it a commonplace, not to accumulate it and finish it. Because accumulation of wealth, as we know, under the system of Deen is not considered a good thing. It has to remain flowing through the society, just like blood in our body. And NFQ, that is Nafaq over here, in relation to Munafiq, is that they keep their options open all the time. And consequently, whoever is not committed to a cause is not good for that cause because they are undependable, untrustworthy. Munafiqeen are the most dangerous in society, that is the Islamic system, because it is hard to predict their conduct. Kafirin are those who openly reject the guidance of Allah, hence they can be identified about their aim in life. Because kafir are those who reject the message of Allah. If we are students of the Quran, I passed on message to someone and he or she says that we don't want it, that is fine, because at least the lines of demarcation are clearly defined. But in the case of Munafiqeen is that outwardly they will say, oh yes, we accept it. But inwardly they are not committed to it. However, Munafiqeen are not only deceitful, but they also try to undermine the system without being detected for as long as possible. And that is a very important point over here to which the Quran has pointed our attention, is that it is not if they stay as a Munafiq and keep doing their own work and do not participate in any activity. That is less harmful, but in case they also undermine it, and this aspect will come out later. Firm resolve is acquired by confronting hypocrisy. Hypocrisy is also considered bad in the non-Deen world, but this is in relation to loyalty to parties and groups and subgroups. The Quran lumps all these together when it talks about man-made systems and guides us by saying that those who do not accept the guidance of Allah and knowingly reject it try to understand them and remain watchful of their opposition. For example, it states, وَيُعَذِّبُ الْمُنَافِقِينَ وَالْمُنَافِقَاتِ وَالْمُشْرِكِينَ وَالْمُشْرِكَاتِ الزَّانِينَ بِاللَّهِ ظَنَّ السَّوْءِ عَلَيْهِمْ دَائِرَةُ السَّوْءِ. Hypocrisy and shirk lead to conjecture and suspicion, and its consequence is that such people find themselves trapped psychologically. So actually they harm themselves in the long run, but in a short run, they can be very harmful to the cause of Deen. At another place, Quran says, Ya ayyuhan nabiyyu yahidul kuffara wal munafiqina wagluz alayhim. The messenger is asked to be firm against kuffar and munafiqeen. See, both are lumped together, kuffar and munafiqeen. This is because the system of Deen cannot be established if its formula is not strictly obeyed, and this needs precisely that Eimaan which is defined by the Quran. And Jamaat Momineen have to be very, very firm against these people once they are discovered. And that means they should have some procedure in place, some criteria in place to judge them. Allah has asked Momineen to recognize them by their signs. This aspect needs to be viewed and analyzed in light of the fear and grief created in the world by the unbalanced psyche of human beings who run the affairs of the world. So we should not get away with this idea that that is fine what is happening in the world, it's not going to affect us. The world, for example, diplomacy is a kind of hypocrisy in the world where the nations, they take care of their own interests, and in that taking care of their vested interests, they harm others. So it is something which should be kept in mind because it is causing a lot of harm across the world. 2 verses explain it all. Innal munafiqina yukhadi'una Allah wa huwa khadi'uhum wa iza qamu ila salati qamu kusala yura'una an-nasa wa la yazkuruna Allah illa qalila. Muzabzabina baina zalika la ilaha haulai wa la ilaha haulai wa man yudlillahu falan tajida lahu sabila. Munafiqeen adopt two-faced tactics towards Allah's system and delude themselves into thinking that they are deceiving Allah. And that is interesting because these people, despite calling themselves Momineen and Muslims and claiming everything, they think that they cannot be caught. But over here, Quran says that they are actually harming their own self, because that psychological dissonance, they can never escape the effects of it. In fact, they are deceiving themselves. When they join the assembly of Salat, they do so grudgingly. So over here, it means that the system of Salat was already established within the system of Deen. And these people used to pose themselves as Momineen. They ignore the purpose of Salat, paying attention only to its formal aspect in order to be seen by others. For example, they will attend the meetings, they will come to any consultations, but in their hearts, they were not with Jamaat-e-Momineen. They belong sincerely neither to one party nor to other, but hover like a fly between the two. Those who discard the path shown by Allah will not find a way. Now, disharmony between word and deed, what it means. At another place, the Quran has cautioned us about any contradiction between what we say and what we do, where Quran says, Ya ayyuhallazina amanu lima taquluna ma la taf'alun. This is from Surah Saf. O Momineen, do not say those things which you are not going to do. This means it will exist in those who are not Momineen, and even Momineen may resort to this if they do not remain aware of the seriousness of this error of judgment in their character. So once we come to the Quran, we have to raise the level of our consciousness and awareness to a very high level so that we are fully aware of what we say, what we do, and also look at what others say. Because over here, we will be going through this surah in detail. Quran also says, don't waste your time on meaningless, aimless conversations. And if we look at this in the world in which we live, how much meaningless conversations take place across the globe. Just look at the 24/7 media. When people do not accept Eimaan completely using their intellect and heart, they do not carry out any responsibilities willingly and with diligence. Because if I'm not fully convinced of something, then I'm not going to put in my best in that direction. So that is something which we have to look at, because our false belief systems also affect our output. And that is why wherever there is a religion, because they have accommodated those false beliefs within their cognition, they will always be backward, because they will never be sure about the way they should get success from their life, even if they think that the life will end with death. As a split personality suffers from uncertainty, the system of Salat needs 100% devotion and dedication, and if its members do not put in their best conscientiously, then the system simply cannot even make a start. We can do nothing. Even, for example, we are working for a degree. We have to devote maximum towards that degree, that education, if we want to get the best out of it. Those with weak hearts and those not committed sow the seeds of dissension by using different tactics among the devoted members. For example, asserting that there is no Deen in the Quran, and we have experienced this as well on this platform. Human beings can obtain same guidance through their own efforts even without the Quran. I have heard it from many quarters, many people who think that human beings can be guided even without the Quran. Sectarian Islam is the same as the Quranic Islam, so much so that people are scared of even looking at it critically. They just want to conform to the majority. If some adjustments are made within the man-made systems, then it can become like Deen. And we hear these kind of comments as well, who look at the Western system of social justice and providing basic means of sustenance to everyone as if it is an Islamic system. Now let us go to the next two verses, 63, 2 and 3. Our thoughts influence our behavior. أَتَّخَذُوا إِيمَانَهُمْ جُنَّةً فَصَدُّوا عَنْ سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ إِنَّهُمْ سَاءَ مَا كَانُوا يَعْمَلُونَ ذَلِكَ بِأَنَّهُمْ آمَنُوا ثُمَّ كَفَرُوا فَطُبِعَ عَلَىٰ قُلُوبِهِمْ فَهُمْ لَا يَفْقَهُونَ. They have made their false oaths as veils of deceit for themselves, hence they prevent people from coming towards the system of Allah. Whatever they are doing is very evil for them. We are telling you about this state of theirs because though they present themselves as Momin, whenever they get the opportunity, they adopt the persona of Kufr. In reality, they simply do not accept Eimaan in their hearts. The psychological consequence of this hypocritical way of conduct is that seals have become imposed on their hearts in such a way that now there remains in them no ability to reflect and reason. And we see that as well, that there are people who will talk loud, they will even praise themselves a lot, and that they also boast about their wealth, their own, for example, families, their own physical successes in the world. And they are the ones who need to look into it, that what is their conduct? What are their words? Is it in line with the Quran or not? The Quran doesn't tell us that we should go out and boast about what we possess materially. The Quran all along is saying that it is your taqwa which matters, and you should work for the system of Deen. So these are the kind of things which should help us to not only identify our own weaknesses and limitations, but also to see in others, so that if we are working for the system of Deen, these will help to get rid of these limitations within our psyche. Further reflections on these two verses. Expanding further on the evil traits of hypocrites, the Quran cautions us about such people that they will use all kinds of oaths to prove that they are sincere in their intention of becoming Momineen. But in fact, their conduct is such that they serve as an obstacle, hindrance on the path of Deen as a system. Next is by declaring innahum sa'a ma kanu ya'malun. So Quran has brought deeds into it, that their practical conduct has serious consequences, and Jamaat-e-Momineen must remain vigilant about it and not show any compassion and soft approach towards them. And that is important, because these people who are divided within their own selves, they do us great harm to any cause, and particularly to the cause of Deen. The point to note here is that it is not about their life in the hereafter. It is their conduct here which will harm the efforts of Deen, and absence of Deen is unacceptable to Momineen and Allah. So this thought should not come in our mind that I'm not going to point it out to them and tell them that you are doing wrong, because Allah will deal with them in the hereafter. The issue over here is about this life. If we have fear and grief and chaos and conflicts in this life, and we have a formula of the Quran, and then it is our duty to forbid evil and promote good. And if we don't do that, then essentially we are not getting benefits from the Quran. Another incident to which the Quran refers is the establishment of mosques. And this is very interesting. Quran says, وَالَّذِينَ اتَّخَذُوا مَسْجِدًا زِرَارًا وَكُفْرًا وَتَفْرِيقًا بَيْنَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. And this is about a mosque which these Munafiqeen had constructed in Medina, which is construction of a mosque, we all know, is considered to be a task or a deed of very high value among religions. Those who put up a mosque to cause harm, kufr, in order to instill division among Momineen. And then we can see that how the mosques under religions are dividing people. Every sect has its own mosque. And this is something which we should keep in mind. In the second verse, the wording points to another important aspect of human psyche. They have converted their Eimaan into kufr, i.e. hypocrisy is the equivalent of kufr. As a consequence of this kufr of theirs, the hearts become sealed, hence never expect any good to come from them, and this fact should be kept in mind all the time. Now let us look at some more points. Since such people do not use their intellect and reasoning within the light of Wahi and follow their immediate benefits for quick results, they are of no use to Jamaat-e-Momineen, because they add weakness to the efforts of Momineen, because they always sow some kind of seeds of dissension, some doubts, some suspicions, and even their remarks at times can cause problems within the hearts of those who have just joined Jamaat-e-Momineen. Deen needs those people who have acquired a self-based Eimaan and are continuously strengthening it through solid deeds. Let us recap the signs noted here for our guidance. Firstly, they use their false acceptance of Eimaan as a shield to hide their true evil intention of harming Jamaat-e-Momineen. And that is important. They are doing it to harm the cause of Momineen, that is, to harm the cause of Allah, His Deen. Secondly, using all kinds of tactics under this garb to hinder others from the path of Allah, that is, through words and actions. And human beings want to conform with others. And once the Jamaat-e-Momineen has risen and has come into existence, then these people who are in majority feel very uncomfortable with this light of Allah, which has suddenly emerged and is asking them to follow this light rather than their darknesses. And that is the problem they suffer. Thirdly, as a consequence of this conversion from Eimaan to Kufr, their psyche has transformed into that condition in which human hearts become sealed, i.e. their ability to make rational decisions based on the permanent values becomes paralyzed. Because they haven't come to the permanent values in the first place. They talk about it, they will talk on this endlessly, but in their heart, they are not convinced of these permanent values. And because of going against these permanent values, Quran says that psychologically they will become paralyzed, they will not be able to get any benefit from the Quran. This leads to a psychological disorder, which is a disease. And Quran has called it disease. Qulubihim maradun fazadahumullahu maradan. Such disorders take time to materialize outwardly. This aspect is covered for the guidance of Momineen and to take this into account under the welfare system of Deen. I put it down over here because this is something which escaped my mind previously, that we have to have all this sorted out in terms of instructions and guidance within the system of Deen, so that all those who have accepted Eimaan, they get maximum out of their own psyche and understand it, and they also recognize others and warn others who show such tendencies. So that is important to think through this problem at some stage. Now, next verse 63:4, the Quran helps in detecting weaknesses of human psyche, own as well as of others. وَإِذَا رَأَيْتَهُمْ تُعْجِبُكَ أَجْسَامُهُمْ وَإِنْ يَقُولُوا تَسْمَعْ لِقَوْلِهِمْ كَأَنَّهُمْ خُشُبٌ مُسَنَّدَةٌ يَحْسَبُونَ كُلَّ صَيْحَةٍ عَلَيْهِمْ هُمُ الْعَدُوُّ فَاحْذَرْهُمْ قَتَلَهُمُ اللَّهُ أَنَّىٰ يُؤْفَكُونَ. When you look at them, their externally presented appearance looks very attractive and leaves a person in wonderment. And when they make conversation, it is in such an innocent and sincere style that every person will listen attentively and believe it to be the truth. And we can see that people come on television nowadays, they are very attractively addressed. They talk as if they are the ones who know the truth. They will make big claims. But later on, after some time, when the newspapers get after them, there is a lot of filth comes out about them. But their inner state is like termite-ridden pieces of wood which are placed against a wall. There is no self-esteem nor energy of life. Outwardly very strong and resolute, the inner self completely hollow and lifeless. So cowardly that if there is even the slightest noise anywhere, their hearts quake, thinking that some trouble is about to descend on them. And it is a fact of life. If people are hiding some truth within their own self, within their own heart and mind, they will always be suffering from uncertainty. And people who are truthful, they have nothing to hide. They will always have a very high self-esteem, and they will always be courageous and will stand up for truth. So that is important aspect which the Quran has covered over here. Constant uncertainty in their hearts, thinking that some intrigue is taking place against us. These are your enemies, so remain constantly vigilant from them. Because deep down, these Munafiqeen in that era were scared of Momineen. They knew that these Momineen are gaining strength, and they also knew that as they will gain strength, they will themselves become exposed. Now, the fight within them is how to hide their true intentions. And they finally got exposed, and they got punished as well. May Allah's curse be upon them. What kind of evil path have they selected for themselves? Recognition of hypocrisy through signs. Here the Quran has provided some more important signs to recognize these people and to not be carried away with their smart appearance and physical stature. For example, well-dressed and attractive style of making conversation. Next point, the important thing to note is what they do and how they participate in the task for the system of Deen. Words are cheap, and we see this happening all over the world in all spheres of life. Another aspect is that in order to observe all this, the Jamaat-e-Momineen need to be not only vigilant, but also need to gather evidence and then discuss it. So one has to mutually exchange this as well among Momineen. It doesn't come under backbiting, because Quran has stated about backbiting, that is about Momineen, that Momineen should avoid doing it against each other. But where there is a doubt, that point has to be discussed, because the aim of Deen deserves or demands that we should be absolutely firm and well informed about the activities which are going on within our rank and file. During discussions, how are they going to exclude these people if they had become part of the decision-making group? And that is very, very risky. If you include such people within the decision-making, they are going to harm you at some later stage. And it's a time bomb which goes off at the most unexpected time. How to recognize them within the group through their speech and conduct, and at what stage are they to be confronted with the presence of contradictions in their words and actions. So if Momineen are continuously finding that some of the individuals among them are not loyal to the cause, then they should come to some conclusion at some point in time once enough evidence is gathered against them. They should not let it go away unnoticed. They should be challenged. Should the Jamaat-e-Momineen come up with some guidelines and instructions on this aspect of detecting Munafiqeen and their disposal? Yes. As and when the system of Deen is established, that is why I put down this line that as and when the system is established and we go through this for education and training, then some kind of sub-clauses will have to be formulated for this. Continuing, here Allah has also made another pertinent comparison of them with termite-ridden wood, i.e. they are sick and cancer has spread through their inner self, and such people are of no use to the system of Deen. Hence, numbers are of least significance in the path of Allah. I put it down because I do hear at times that there are not enough numbers within the forum we have. It is not numbers. We have gone through the Quran in significant detail in a lot of aspects of human psyche, that it is not numbers. If we have one wrong person among our ranks, then he or she is the one who is going to create problems. May not be now, but as and when the system starts getting established, and these people can cause horrendous loss and harm. Deen does not need cowardly people. It is a system of Allah, and those working on His behalf must be transparent, courageous, bold, pragmatic, and steadfast. So there is no diplomacy over here. We should say what we mean. We should mean what we have, the courage for which we have to say and state clearly. They have nothing to hide, and they say what they practice, and they have the capacity to say a big no as and when required. So we must have the ability to say no as well if it is not in line with the Quran. This is because the consequences of having hypocrites among Momineen are very serious. They know clearly that any divergence on this path means absolutely no success on the path of Deen. And that is one we should keep in mind all the time, that if we diverge from the permanent values of the Quran, whether it is our individual private life or collective life, then we are going to get a harm at some point in time in our future life. However, they also need to be warned of their conduct and told that the path of theirs will take them to ultimate ruin. Warning others is a permanent value. The point to which the Quran is drawing our attention is that once such people are detected and the facts are established, then they must not be anywhere near the system of Deen, period. Let's go to the next two verses. Human psyche never stays stagnant, 63, 5 and 6. وَإِذَا قِيلَ لَهُمْ تَعَالَوْا يَسْتَغْفِرْ لَكُمْ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ لَوَّى رُؤُوسَهُمْ وَرَأَيْتَهُمْ يَصُدُّونَ وَهُمْ مُسْتَكْبِرُونَ سواء عليهم أستغفرت لهم أم لم تستغفر لهم لن يغفر الله لهم إن الله لا يهدي القوم الفاسقين. When they are told, come and accept your errors and weaknesses so that Allah's messenger may seek the means of protection for you from the divine system, then they choose to turn away from this. They pause for a moment and then walk off arrogantly. That means they have been detected now, and they are told that stop this path of yours because you cannot harm us, but come under the protection of the system, and they turn away. And that is a very good sign for those people who do not agree with the guidance of the Quran and its permanent values, that they need to leave if they do not agree with it. O Rasool, we know your compassionate heart desires that they are somehow saved from destruction and ruin, but your wishes cannot save them from this destruction. For them it is equal whether you desire this for them or not. They have advanced so far on this wrong path of theirs that they will most certainly be destroyed according to the law of requital of Allah. So it is better not to be on the side of those who are going to be destroyed and ruined at some point in the future, and not to let them be in Momineen, because if they, once they reap the evil results of their deeds, then Momineen is not harmed. The law of Allah is that those people who, having abandoned the right path, adopt the wrong path and do not wish to change their path, the avenues of peace and prosperity never open for them. When hypocrisy becomes detected, it appears that these people have now been found out, or at least some of their evil traits have been detected, and they are being confronted with this conduct of theirs. They are invited to seek the means of protection as per the law of Allah through the procedure Taba min ba'de zulmiha wa aslaha. Having recognized their wrongdoing, to return to the point where a wrong direction was taken and then doing right. Innal hasanate yuzhibna sayyiat. We have gone through this verse previously under Surah Hud. The law states that good deeds erase the effects of evil deeds. So over here, when they are being asked to ask for protection, it is not forgiveness through supplication or some kind of a prayer. This is a practical aspect of going under the protection of the laws of Allah. They reject this offer and move away, thinking, what can these Momineen do? And that is important to understand, that these people are still, since powerful, it is the initial stages of the establishment of Deen, so they think they don't need these Momineen and they can do whatever they like and they can get away with it, not realizing that later in the future, later in the hereafter, in this life, they will be caught and continue on the evil path of theirs, which they have selected for themselves deliberately. Next point is, here comes a great instruction for those who wish to pursue the path of Deen, and that is for us. Seeing their evil conduct and doings, never have a soft corner in the hearts for them. So we have to be very firm. This is what the Quran is asking us to, and it takes time to become firm. And once we see that how much harm these people can do, then that firmness should arise within our hearts and minds. Allah has used very strong wording in the second verse to help the psyche of Momineen, asking them to create firmness in their hearts by keeping in view the long-term effects of displaying any leeway in their approach towards these evil people. Because the word which we have around us is because of Munafiqeen, Mushrikeen, Kafirun, Kazibeen, and all these people. And if those who have come on this path and they also become slack in it and say, okay, let's accept it, that is fine, we need numbers as well, then essentially we are not following the recipe of the Quran, so forget about getting any help. And this is in a reply to that question as well at times, which comes to our mind, that for such a long time, for so many centuries, why the Deen was never established again. It is because people who wanted to establish it, they were never firm in their resolve on this path of Allah. What exactly do they intend doing by their words and deeds? Now, continuing the issue of seeking means of protection for Munafiqeen. Another trait of these people is noted in verse 967. Al-Munafiquna wal-Munafiqate ba'duhum min ba'din ya'muruna bil munkari wa yanhauna anil ma'ruf. So these hypocrites do exactly opposite of Momineen. What Momineen do is ta'miruna bil ma'ruf wa nahi anil munkar. And these people, what they do is ya'muruna bil munkari wa yanhauna anil ma'ruf. Hypocrites, men and women, are but companions of each other. Very important. Ba'duhum min ba'din. They promote evil and forbid good. This not only needs to be viewed in relation to Momineen, but should be closely witnessed in the world based on man-made systems. And this is going on all around us in every country and in every society. Hypocrisy is part of all religions as being part of their belief systems. There are justifications for every wrong by providing blanket forgiveness. All those who come to the Quran looking for guidance have to recognize this aspect and then make efforts to erase it from their cognitive makeup. Whenever human beings think that by doing evil and wrong they can get away with it, there is no way one can reform such mentality unless these people themselves think that they are accountable for whatever they are doing. Here Allah has clearly asked us not to have any ambivalence about these people. They are criminals and there is no means of protection for them in this life unless they become those Momineen which they proclaim to be. Next point is, then the permanent value is stated for our guidance. There is no guidance for those who stay outside the pattern put forward by the Quran. Let us go to the next verse, 62:7. Efforts on the path of Deen need to be supported willingly. Humullazina yakuluna la tunfiqu ala min inda Rasulillahi hatta yanfaddu walillahi khazainu samawati wal ardi walakinnal munafiqina la yafqahun. Their condition is such that never mind helping the divine system themselves, they also keep telling others not to provide any financial help to those people who are with the messenger. Just see how big criminality they have. Any system which has to be established, that needs material resources. And when the Messenger of Allah was asking Momineen to come forward, helping the system, these people, not only that they did not help themselves, but they will go around, whisper around and say that do not help this messenger. In this way, when they will die of hunger, they will abandon him and become dispersed themselves. And in this way, his mission will remain unsuccessful. Say to them that there are brimming treasures of rizq in the highs and lows of the universe with Allah. He is not in need of your help, but how can these hypocrites know this fact? Words need to be supported by action. Another sign of hypocrisy is noted here, i.e., despite claiming to be part of the efforts for the system of Deen, not extending any monetary help willingly to the system, knowing that no system in the physical world can be established without material resources. So these hypocrites know that helping this system will become established, this will become successful. So what they do is they are undermining the very basis of this system, that is, not allowing the means of sustenance, extra means to be made available for the establishment of the system. So they are presenting an evidence that they are working against the interest of the system. They not only do not come forward to help tangibly, despite claiming to be in a covenant with Allah regarding their life and possessions as per verse 911, they act as a hindrance and tell others not to help the center of the system. Here it is the messenger himself. This is an extremely serious indictment by Allah against them. If they were not claiming to be Momineen and portraying themselves as part of Momineen and had connived against Muslims, then that would be expected of them. Here they have become moles within the Islamic system. So allowing them to prosper within Momineen, within the system, means that we will be weakening our own system by putting a time bomb within the system of Deen. So this is that aspect to which the Quran is drawing our attention for all times. Here comes a very important point from the direction of Allah for Momineen. Never be discouraged by the machinations of such people. Remain steadfast and continue striving on this path of His, and opportunities will become created through the hands of Momineen. Future successes depend on what we do today. Because the way Quranic system progresses forward is that it initially does not require a lot of resources, but gradually it gains strength. And those people who are fully committed to it, then they are willing to sacrifice more and more as the system progresses forward and sees its own success. Next verse 63:8, efforts for Deen gain strength with time. Yakuluna lain rajana ilal madinate la yukhrijannal azzu minhal azalla. Walillahil izzatu wali rasulihi walil mu'minina walakinnal munafiqina la ya'lamun. They say, let us return once again to Medina, then you will see how the powerful people there will turn these weak and lowly people out from that place. They do not know that all power and authority rests with remaining in association with the divine system. Hence, it is specifically for the Momineen. But these hypocrites do not have knowledge of this reality. Just see through how much trial and tribulations that initial Jamaat went through. And comparing it with that, in today's world, we are having a relatively easier time. Because at that time, these Munafiqeen had made the life of Jamaat Momineen very, very difficult. Because Momineen could recognize kuffar. They could recognize the people of the book. But Munafiqeen were very difficult to recognize because they could hide their true intentions within their hearts and minds. More signs of hypocrisy. The rich and powerful immediately resort to this tactic of turning people out of their homes and habitations when they see that Jamaat Momineen are unwilling to give up their striving on the path of Allah. Just see how differentiation and clear demarcation is now taking place between Momineen and all others. We have witnessed this behavior in the case of other messengers as well. For example, Ibrahim, Musa, and Harun, where people in power threaten them with serious consequences if they do not leave their homes, or they will be forced to leave. Here too, these Munafiqeen who outwardly were Momineen and Muslims are now threatening the messenger and other Momineen that once they return to Medina, they will be forced to vacate their homes. It appears that they were by now recognized. Allah has made it clear that real power belongs to Him, and Momineen and the hypocrites simply do not understand the nature and strength of this power. Such conditions exist even in today's world and need our careful attention and analysis. The efforts of Momineen take time to gain strength, and they have to go through this process of education, training, selection of a core team. This includes the process of elimination of those who act as hindrance on this path. Let us go to the next verse, 63:9. Human self needs to understand its priorities on the path of Allah. So up to this point, Quran has discussed Munafiqeen, and now Allah has come to Momineen, that what they should do, keeping in view what has been explained previously. Ya ayyuhallazina amanu la tulhikum amwalukum wala auladukum an zikrillahi wa man yaf'al zalika fa ulaika humul khasirun. This is, in any event, the condition of these hypocrites, and these are their designs. So now Quran says that you have become clear with these people. Now let us come to your own self. So, O Jamaat-e Momineen, see that you do not fall into their wiles, due to which your condition may become such that, like them, the love for wealth and possessions and progeny makes you ignore obedience to the laws of Allah. We have seen towards the end that Quran says that Munafiqeen used to say that do not help this cause of Deen. And over here now the Quran is warning us, admonishing us that be careful, that if you have got onto this path, then don't hold back what is required for the establishment of the system of Deen. Those people who resort to this need to remember that this will cause severe harm to reach them. Momineen also need to invest time and effort in their families. Here the Quran invites us to find a link between what is stated above about the role of hypocrites in opposing the establishment of the system of Deen and attempting to weaken it. What do Momineen need to do? By stating, Amanu la tulhikum, do not get lost in those pursuits which, despite claiming to be Momineen, will lead to distraction and weaken the resolve on this path of Allah. Very important, the focus of all our attention should be this. So cognitively, this should become part of our mind and heart. These are transient pleasures, worldly attractions, activities which do not contribute towards the striving for Deen, i.e. all that which does not get support from the permanent values of the Quran. This includes activities related to the accumulation of wealth and being lost in the biological pride in children. Here an important comparison is drawn by the Quran, i.e. do not let these distract you from the zikr of Allah, which is the Quran. Know the priorities under the Quranic value system and never be distracted from this supreme aim. So it's an evolutionary process, and we are going through it gradually as well. That how do we change our psyche in the light of the Quranic light, in the light of Wahi? For example, if children have come to the Quran and have become Momineen, then this does not remain a biological family. And this is something very important because I gave it a lot of thought from practical aspect, but instead has turned into a mini Jamaat of Momineen. Because if in a family, children have responded, or parents have responded to the call of children, if children have become Momineen first, then that family is not a biological family anymore. It has become a mini Jamaat of Momineen. Then what they will do together with others will become a striving in the path of Deen. But if they do not become a Jamaat Momineen, then that biological form of that family must be recognized by those who have become Momineen. And that is an important point over here to which the Quran is drawing our attention. Here Allah has taken our thought process towards highlighting the pitfalls in our worldly life. This is where the biological son of Hazrat Nuh is declared to be not from his family. And we have gone through this aspect in fair amount of detail under Surah Hud, I think. Elaborating few more aspects, living in non-Deen societies and world, we have to strike a balance in our lives. Not all children or parents will come to the Quran despite the efforts of parents to invite them to this path. And this is the initial stages of coming to the Quran. And we all are experiencing it in today's world. But this should be faced with patience and steadfastness, and not to give up and not to become disheartened. However, parents or children are both, knowing the significance of the guidance of Allah, should continue to remind everyone about the permanent values without causing any annoyance. Not an easy task. If we become annoyed, that means we need a lot of training, because if we become impulsive, emotive, we have to remain very calm on this path, because this needs a lot of patience, a lot of time of respite has to be given to others. In the meantime, keep developing oneself by never giving up, as this self-development is essential to understand the change in outlook which can only come with a higher understanding of the system of Deen and by coming together with those who are also striving on this path under very challenging circumstances. Remember that comes individually. So our individual identity and integrity and unity is very important, because even if we have come together and we are striving for the system of Deen, because the system of Deen needs collective effort, still the fact of individual death should be kept in mind. And we have gone over this point previously as well, but I thought as a reminder, it is good to put it down here. This verse should be analyzed bearing in mind what is noted earlier concerning Munafiqeen and their signs. Merely accepting Eimaan and then keeping on following the same path which people under the non-Deen system pursue will never help us to develop ourselves, which is required for the system of Deen. And by stating towards the end of the verse, Quran says, فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْخَاسِرُونَ. The Quran has asked us to reflect deeply on this, that it will lead to real loss in life, i.e. will affect our status in the life of the hereafter. Next verse, 63:10, the opportunity for self-development ceases with physical death. وَأَنْفِقُوا مِمَّا رَزَقْنَاكُم مِّن قَبْلِ أَنْ يَأْتِيَ أَحَدَكُمُ الْمَوْتُ فَيَقُولَ رَبِّي لَوْلَا أَخَّرْتَنِي إِلَىٰ أَجَلٍ قَرِيبٍ فَأَصَدَّقَ فَأَكُن مِّنَ الصَّالِحِينَ. A lot covered in this verse, and I have tried to succinctly present it before all of us. Whatever Allah has bestowed on you, keep it open for the establishment of His system before that death faces you. And he utters with despair and regret that, "Oh my Rabb, if you would only have given me a bit more respite, then I would have demonstrated my proclamation of Eimaan as being truthful through my deeds. And in this way would have become included among those people who remain busily engaged in your program to bring out human potentials. And in this way, they reform humanity and their own selves." And just see that how it is addressed to Rizaqnakum, to each one of us. And death is placed external to us. That is external to I, external to you. And saying that you, whom we are addressing, you're going to taste this death. That is why Quran says that kullu nafsin zaikatul maut. And if we pay attention to that and use our intense imagination and conceptualization, there is a lot in this verse for us as an opportunity to overcome all the weaknesses and limitations we might experience within our own selves. Next, the comments on this: I should understand the first phase of life, which ends with physical death of the body, not of I. This verse and the next one sum up the human psyche of delaying important actions in our mortal existence in this world. Human beings are very good in pursuing immediate gains in life, but when it comes to practicing delayed gratification, many fail in this respect. The Quran has linked the benefits of the life of the hereafter, long-term effects of our deeds, with the acceptance of Eimaan and carrying out solid deeds. So the important point is to take cognizance of our own way of living, that where is our focus of success in this life. That does not mean that one should not work hard to earn the conveniences and material benefits of this life. But Quran is drawing our attention to our outlook, and then seeing that if you are making efforts on this path, what is your contribution towards that in terms of material means which are available to you? Have you made Allah as your business partner or not? And if you do not make Allah as a business partner in your efforts, then essentially you are not relying on his support. Because if you make him business partner in your efforts, then essentially that business can never ever can go down, because it is the same business we are going to do with him in the hereafter. And that is the point to which the Quran is drawing our attention in a beautiful style. We have witnessed how hypocrites did not wish to provide any help to the system of Deen, and here the Quran is inviting genuine Momineen to keep their wealth and possessions available for pursuit of the system of Deen. If we look back that verse of Surah Tawbah, Inna Allah ashtara min al-mu'minina anfusahum wa amwalahum bi anna lahumul jannata, that we had made a commitment by accepting Eimaan in the Quran that we make our own self as well as wealth and possessions available on this path. Allah has entered into an agreement, purchased the self and possessions of those who have accepted Eimaan in return for Al-Jannah. Another interesting point to note is that the Quran is reminding us about the fact of the finitude of the physical body, which with reference to the eternal nature of our eye, i.e., as and when death arrives, which you know will arrive, then this eye of ours will have a problem if it did not do enough for its life in the hereafter. This verse should not create any fear, but should be taken as explaining the status of death, defining the end of this phase of life of ours. And that is important. The Quran is explaining the procedure, explaining the permanent value that death is going to come. And if death is going to come and you know it is going to come, then do something about it, not out of fear, but understand the procedure which is given in the Quran and get the maximum out of your life. So Quran is not forbidding us from earning more or going for material successes, but trying to put the things in true perspective. 63:10 further reflections by stating, O Rab, the Quran has reminded us that since your aim is rububiyat in the word, and in order to manifest this attribute, you need to do this to help develop yourself, for which you all have willingly entered into an agreement with Allah. Hence, take action and do not wait for the arrival of death. Because death can arrive anytime. We do not know when this will come, because in any case, in the world of today, things happen at random, and there's so much high risk to our lives that if we go through it on some of the videos on YouTube, even the diet we are having is so contaminated and has problems that each one of us could develop cancer anytime, of which no one knows the time of arrival. In any case, in your worldly matters, you do not delay when you want immediate benefits. And that is very important, because we should not become an evidence against our own selves. When death arrives and then you wish it to be delayed in order to be good, this means that you knew that this is an important part of your duty towards the establishment of the system of Deen. Hence, you will provide evidence against your own self. And we should keep this in mind, because Munafiqeen are discussed earlier in relation to Deen. So these three verses are also in continuity of that and in relation to the system of Deen. The concluding part of the verse needs us to pause and reflect, وَأَقُمْ مِنَ الصَّالِحِينَ, by resorting to فَصَدَّقَ, making means available, I would have included myself among those who do salih deeds. So that means if we think we are not among Salihin, then we have a problem towards the end of our life. Can one provide any more concrete evidence about own self that one is excluded from the Jamaat of Salihin? Does it not fall within that category where the Quran has asked us not to have any dichotomy between our word, that is thought, and deed? Let us go to the last verse of today's presentation, 63:11, immutability of Allah's laws and their significance in relation to self-development. وَلَنْ يُؤَخِّرَ اللَّهُ نَفْسًا إِذَا جَاءَ أَجَلُهَا وَاللَّهُ كَبِيرٌ بِمَا تَعْمَلُونَ. But the immutable law of Allah is that when death reaches someone, then he does not receive any further respite. Hence, whatever you wish to do, do not cause any delay in this. Allah is aware of every deed of yours. How to say goodbye to this phase of life? Here the Quran concludes this surah by stating another permanent value, i.e., our physical death follows physical laws, and when it arrives, for example, terminal illness, sudden cardiac arrest, old age, accident, and we can add things to this list, etc., this cannot be delayed any further. The chapter of our self's life on this planet ends. Whatever our self, that is our I, has become, it will arise in that state in which it said goodbye to this arena of deeds called planet Earth. So that is something which we should remind ourselves, that we should not be in that condition which is stated in all these three verses. Because we should come to this conclusion towards the end of our life, that whatever I could do, I have done my best within the light of the Quran, and I worked with all those who were also on this path and dedicated my best to this. The time of respite ends here, that is called Ajal, and this stage of our worldly life hands us over to the next stage as per the law of Allah. And we have gone through this aspect as well, that human life creation is a very serious part of Allah's creation. And we essentially hand ourselves over from this world to our next life. That is, our self moves from this to our next one. And akhirah means that our next stage will be different from this. Here the Quran has drawn our attention to this observed fact, which we witness on a regular basis in the physical deaths of other human beings around us. And this is the dilemma of human thought, that they think others will die, I will not. And this is a fact, because at a level of our eye, we are ageless. Our thoughts don't go old. Even if somebody is 70, does not mean his thoughts or her thoughts are 70 years old. Those will be as young as these used to be when he or she was 10 years old. The concluding part of the verse is, Wallahu khabirum bima ta'malun. The more I look at this part of the verse, the more one becomes convinced that Allah has gone to such an extent to explain our psyche to us, because he is the creator of our psyche, our thinking. So what Quran is saying is, Allah is well aware of our deeds, that he knows what is in your hearts and minds. So you cannot deceive, because the law of requital is taking care of everything. The way the law of requital is functioning in your life, you cannot escape. You cannot have, your thoughts cannot be such which cannot be accounted for. The law of requital of Allah takes into account every aspect of what we do in this life. Hence, no use showing any regret and disappointment towards the end of our life. Because showing regret and disappointment towards the end of your life, we deliberately did not take action knowingly. If someone has come to the Quran very late in life, let's say a few years before his death, he has some excuse. But someone like me, for example, who had enough time in his life after accepting Eimaan in the Quran, then I have no excuse to use this kind of tactics towards the end, that, oh Allah, give me some more time. Whatever solid deeds we can do now, do it with this in mind, that every step of ours is in that direction, i.e. on Sirat al-Mustaqim as defined by the Rububiyyat of Allah. Thank you very much for your time and for sharing this today. Please feel free to share it with your contacts. You may like to subscribe for future talks related to the Quranic system of Deen. Thank you.